Welcome to Mental Health Momentum, a Silicon Slopes podcast. I'm Dr. David Morgan. I'm a licensed psychologist and the Director of Mental Health Awareness here at Silicon Slopes. On this podcast, we talk about the impact of mental health issues on workers and businesses and society as a whole as we try to find solutions. And today I'd like to introduce my guest, Cynthia Gambill. Hello, Cynthia.
Thank you for having me. Hello.
So glad to have you. Cynthia is a seasoned professional with over 30 years experience in business, community connections, and philanthropy. She excels in fostering partnerships and organizing people experiences. Her expertise lies in cultivating relationships, promoting community engagement, and connecting supporters with opportunities to connect. Cynthia's mission is to inspire others to engage with community leaders and give back to the country that has helped her fulfill her dreams of having an education, a career, and a family. We'll talk about this in just a little bit. Cynthia is originally from Argentina.
That's right.
But Italian as well.
Yeah. My ancestors are from Italy, but born and raised in Buenos Aires, Argentina.
And ended up here in the United States where she got her MBA at Brigham Young University. She was building national sales teams in corporate America and then started organizing communities and collaborating with talented leaders to achieve important objectives for Saprea, which we'll talk about in depth here in just a bit. And Saprea exists to liberate individuals and society from child sexual abuse and its lasting impacts. Cynthia actively contributes to various business and community boards focusing on higher education, performing arts, and causes that support women and children. It's not uncommon to see Cynthia lecturing students at institutions of higher education regarding the importance of building relationships well beyond the potential transactional benefit. She enjoys speaking to numerous women's groups as well regarding the importance of supporting each other by building meaningful relationships and removing envy, competition, or comparisons by staying informed and educated so they can be fulfilled and contribute to society in meaningful ways. As her own personal contribution to the world, she's the mother of 4 sons. She embraces the role of a baseball mom while instilling values of discipline, teamwork, and resilience in her children. Her commitment to transparency and accountability ensures that funds raised directly contribute to Saprea's mission. Cynthia's passion for creating meaningful connections and making a positive impact resonates through her work and personal endeavors. Every time I read these bios, I'm just so inspired, and I think I'm going to be a better person because of this. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, like how you ended up at Saprea, how you ended up you were not born in the United States? Or
No, I was born and raised in Buenos Aires, Argentina. I was about in my early 20s when I moved to the United States. My family moved here to Utah. So it just came to try it, and I was going to college down there, and I said, I'm just going to go for a year or two. I'm young. I don't have any, and so I came and I never left. I saw that this country provides so much potential for humanity in general. Growing up in Argentina, I would always hear and watch and see the United States, and I always thought that it was just this country that I would never be a part of, but I would really like to know and visit. When my family had a new assignment for my father to move here, and I said, my dream is coming true. It was not going to be a long term, but then I've never went back to my country. At least to visit, yes, but not to live.
Not to live, yeah.
And I didn't know the language. I didn't know English.
Really?
I sort of started from scratch here. I witnessed sort of the little bit of the dark side sometimes of a country that doesn't know too much about beyond the borders, about other countries, other cultures, even other languages.
Right.
So that was a rough start. Never really wanted to give up on that, but it was somewhat of some discrimination and against but it's mostly out of ignorance. I don't fault anybody. I think that people need to know. I think that through the years, now it's been 30 years, but through the years, I think that people have had a little bit more of a sense of what happens around the world. Internet has helped developed that, desire in other people to know what else is going on. But when I came here, there was no internet, there was no email, there was no, and so it was just very early on. But now I think it is. I still feel that this country, as you mentioned, gave me the three things that I always wanted. Since I was a little girl, way beyond I knew I was going to come here. I always wanted a family, an education, and a career. And I can say that probably one or more than one of the three I may not have been able to accomplish that in Argentina. So by coming here and being able to have everything that I always wanted, I go, this is the place where I want to land, and but didn't come easy. But I still wanted to give back, and that's my way of giving back. My nonprofit work, my serving in many communities as an organizer on boards, teaching in schools, all volunteer, is my way to say thank you.
I love that you talked about your experiences with discrimination, and it's very generous for you to say that it's mostly out of ignorance. I would hope that it's like that.
It is.
I had the chance to be a missionary in Mexico,
Yep.
and before I went there, I was raised in Southern California, or I was going to high school in Southern California, and it was a fairly diverse population in my high school. But most of the people I associated with were white people like myself. And the most fascinating thing I realized once I got to Mexico was just how diverse it was. That there was every personality, there was every variation in human being, just like I had experienced here in the United States. And I had probably, out of ignorance, I had viewed other cultures as maybe a little more unidimensional, thinking, oh well, all people from Mexico would be like this, or all people from Argentina would be like this, which in retrospect, I think that's ridiculous. How could it possibly be like that? And the things that make us different are so small compared to the things that make us similar. And I love that. And
I love that perspective.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And all it takes is to go and have that experience. And it literally took me about a week. And I was like, oh my goodness, everyone here, this is literally exactly like home, except they look a little bit different, they talk different, and they eat different foods and everything else. It was like,
more.
There were families, there were jokesters, there were somber people.
I think that the secret on that is where you emphasize, right? If you're going to just emphasize on the differences, oh, I hate the food, or I hate the language, or I hate the customs and traditions, and then you're going to have a type of life. If you're able to overcome that, we enter into what you just said. There's a lot more things in common. If you emphasize in that, then you're happy anywhere. Really.
I totally agree. Well, let's talk about Saprea. So will you tell the listeners what Saprea does, how it was founded?
It really goes back to our founders, Derek and Shalane Maxfield. They are actually the founders and owners of a very profitable for-profit company. But what it is interesting about them is that they started that company about 13 years ago with the only purpose to fund the foundation.
Oh, really?
The foundation came first. They just needed a vehicle to fund it. Derek Maxfield at the time had just sold a software company. It was quite a successful transaction, good exit. And about that time, right at that time, a very close family member came forward, an adult woman now, came forward saying that while she was growing up, she was sexually abused repeatedly by somebody in the very close circles of trust. And she never disclosed it to the family, not until about she was in her mid-30s. That news devastated the family, which also realized why she had been making some choices in her life that as a family they couldn't understand or even accept. And her behavior was unlike the rest of the family. So they sort of put two and two together, and they realized that childhood trauma that she endured for several years growing up was as a result of that sort of adult life. And so this couple, the Maxfields, were in the mid-30s, 4 little kids. And they said, we need to do something about this. But the money that we have, even with the the wealth that we were able to accumulate is going to take more than that. And so they said, well, we're going to open another business just like that. And we will make it successful enough so we'll be able to, in 5 to 7 years, we will be able to open the foundation. Little did I know that within the first 2 years that we're in business, they were already there. So their projections and financial forecasts were there. And I said, we're not going to wait 7 years. We're going to do it now. So in 2015, Saprea started. At the time, it was called the Unique Foundation. It was rebranded 2 years and a half ago as Saprea.
What is Saprea? I mean, does the name mean anything?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, it's just, it was one of many, many, many names that was presented to our founders as we were going through the process of rebranding.
Okay.
And she chose that.
Okay.
Sounds good. It's shorter than the Unique Foundation.
Right.
It's sort of, it allows her to go to other markets by having a shorter name.
Right, right.
But it's been resonating well in the community. I have my reservations at the beginning. I said, oh, rebranding now, It's just a lot of, I had gone through rebrands before, but anyway, so I'm glad we did. So anyway, after we will be celebrating our 10th year now in 2025, next year, that we've been in business. And essentially, Saprea exists to liberate individuals and society from child sexual abuse, and all of it impacts. As someone in the line of in your profession know that the impacts of childhood trauma are very devastating, and the repercussions.
It can be generational.
It is.
Yeah.
It is generational, and the statistics are very much against any society. So we're trying to make a switch in that. We provide a healing retreat for women 18 or older that were sexually abused, 18 or younger in their childhood, and it's a very informational, educational, and experiential retreat. They come for 4.5 days. It is run by licensed clinicians, and they learn how to cope with their trauma.
How often do you do the retreats?
We do it 34 to 36 weeks a year.
Okay, so it's frequent.
It's every 3. We have 3 weeks on, 1 week off.
Okay. Is there a cost to the individuals?
It is no cost to the participant, to the survivor. If they live out of the state or out of the country, they have to pay for their way. But once they get here, everything is paid from the day they are picked up at the airport or meet us at a retreat to the day they leave. And all of we offer about 14 different classes. We don't do group therapy or even one-on-one therapy. This is, like I said, it's very instructional.
More kind of psychoeducational?
It's educational.
Okay.
It's trauma-informed.
Right.
And the ladies learn what really happened to them, why they do what they do. Many of them realize that, oh, I'm not crazy.
Right.
What happened in my brain, for no fault of my own, is something that I can somewhat control now. By learning, we do classes on yoga, Muay Thai, meditation, instructional as to trauma in the brain, what happens there, right? Mindful walking, writing. These are all activities that reconnect the body with the brain, that as a result of the trauma, there's a disassociation and disconnection. Once they leave, they get a lifetime of healing, of course, but at least they receive the instructions that they need to move forward into their healing journey.
I was just going to say, as you were talking about that, because the journey obviously continues. I mean,
it's lifetime.
Yeah, exactly. 4.5 days is a good start, but that's not the end all be all. But it sounds like the two main things you're providing. Number one, education, because if we're operating from a faulty set of beliefs about something, then we're kind of done before we start because we can't find our way out of it.
Exactly.
And also that the mindfulness, I love that, just kind of connecting them with their emotional experiences, helping them better understand those. Makes so much a difference because for so many people that have been through trauma, a lot of their emotional experience, like you said, there's a dissociation, there's a disconnect there. And so their emotions are just kind of running wild. They're the victim of that, basically, and they don't know how. And so you have to have them reconnect and say, okay, what is this emotion? How can I recognize it? How can I manage it? And then if they start with those two things, with the education and more mindfulness, any sort of therapy or other things they can do after that will be they'll go into that so much further ahead than any other people.
Totally ahead. I mean, there have been women that come to our retreat and said, you don't only changed my life, but saved it.
Yeah.
Because suicidal ideation is one of many repercussions, of that childhood trauma. But as you were talking about the brain, as you will know, the brain doesn't know schedules and doesn't know time or timing. So something that happened 30 years ago, but somebody walks and talks like your perpetrator, the brain thinks that it's happening right now. Right. So in order to protect you, then it's just going to give you all these, it's just going to alert you, right? Yeah. Like it's happening right now. But when somebody has that type of triggers, those type of triggers every day, sometimes several times a day, it's really hard to live with that. So our retreat, the information that we share is that you're not crazy. This is what happened to you. The body keeps score. You read that book, I'm sure. And so you're going to have a lifetime of support. In addition to our retreat, post-retreat, we offer educational online resources that they can sort of keep referring to for up to, whatever many, how long as they need it. We also offer one-on-one therapy. All of this is for free. One-on-one therapy in our facility if they live here in the neighborhood, for as long as they also need it. And we also have a healing webinar that is sort of a condensed summary of what happens in the in-person retreat. These are for women that really cannot leave their places, their families, or they don't even have the money to come to Utah. So we offer that. It's a 4.5-hour retreat, sort of webinar, where they learn exactly the same principles that are taught over the period of 4.5 days in person.
That is amazing. One of the things you mentioned, Saprea exists to liberate individuals and society from the effects of sexual abuse. So you've talked a little bit about these retreats, which are designed for the individual. How do you approach society?
Right. That's a great question, and this is something that we realize that we would never be out of our jobs if we don't do something about stopping this epidemic. It is an epidemic if you look at the statistics. And the statistics that we do have are just the cases that are reported. There are a lot of cases that women take it to their graves, and men too.
And men as well.
To their graves and never said anything, not even to their spouses. So our work in the community is threefold. So we talk a little bit about the healing and all of our healing resources, all of which are free. We also have another mission, which is prevention. We want to educate parents, caregivers, anybody that spends time with our children. They are our audience, not the children, but the adults in their lives. We feel that by educating them with what happened to a child, if something like this happens to them, and how to prevent it. We have community classes. We have trained presenters that go into any group and any community to not only teach them on how to protect the child, but also raise the level of awareness in the process. So we do believe that by teaching parents to identify signs of a child that comes home from a school and starts acting a little bit different, and we as parents, as as well-intended as we are or educated as we are, we just think, it's just going through a phase. In a couple of weeks, he or she, or in a week, in a 2, just let it sip on it. Well, we teach them what are those signs, what is that they do, and we also, which is even more so important in any kind of family situation, or child-adult situation, we try to help them understand the importance that the child develops a relationship with a trusted adult.
Yeah.
So when and if, mostly is when, they are faced with that type of trauma, or somebody's grooming them, or not even all the way to an abuse, but somebody's just kind of getting into their lives
across
and
their boundaries.
intruding in, yes.
Yeah.
And say, okay, mom, dad, grandma, teacher, whoever their
Right.
trusted adult is in their lives, that they can go and say, this is not right. You're right. This is not right. Let me take over from here, right? So we try to teach the adults the importance in their child's life in more ways than just care for them on a daily basis, right? Food and shelter. There's a lot more than that.
Well, and that has potentially huge benefits as well, even beyond just situations where sexual abuse might be there. But if you can help parents or caregivers develop a trusted relationship with their child, they're going to talk to them about all sorts of things.
All
right?
sorts of things.
All sorts of things. Whether and maybe it happens to be a sexual boundary situation, or it could be depression or anxiety or suicidal thinking or whatever it is.
Consent.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Consent is a big one. We develop different classes that we teach parents, right? And they are all geared towards identifying those signs, preventing them from happening. But they are all age appropriate as well. How do you talk to a child 0 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 7, 7 to 11, 11 to teenagers and adults, right? So these are all customized for their development stages, right? And but always around the subject of sexual consent, what it is. It is actually a beautiful thing. It has to be done with and under the circumstances.
Exactly. Yeah. In the appropriate appropriate setting, it's a beautiful, healthy experience.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be.
Supposed to be very fulfilling. But when you do it in the perpetrators are always going to keep it a secret.
Right.
Have the child keep it a secret. And even threaten them if they share it with anybody else. I'm sure that whoever is listening to this and it is a survivor of child sexual abuse can identify with this kind of grooming.
Absolutely. Well, and I appreciate that Saprea is giving good quality education about the real issues. When I lived in Washington, and I'm not sure how it works here in Utah, but they when certain people were convicted of sex offenses, they'd get on a sex offender registry, and so there would be community notification depending on the different levels that they were. But the data on convicted sex offenders reoffending it's very low. It's about 8% of treated sex offenders and 17% of untreated sex offenders actually do it again. So most of the sex offenses that are being committed by people who have never been caught in a sex offense, and yet we're putting all this information on saying, now be careful of these people that have done this before, where maybe you should be careful of those people, but you need to be aware of the people that have never been caught, but the signs are still there. Like you said, those boundary crossings, those groomings and things like that, regardless of the person's history, if they're doing that, that's dangerous. And it doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter if it's your dad or your mom or your uncle or the registered sex offender down the street. It's all danger.
And what is interesting and very sad, in my opinion, and probably most people's opinions, is that almost 90% of the perpetrators are people in the child's circle of trust.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's not a stranger danger, like we were mentioning earlier today. Is the uncle, is the mom's boyfriend, is child on child.
Yeah.
And it's another dimension of being the recognizable adult, in the life, is that when and if a child sort of discloses to someone else in the family, it's very common that family member, because it's a family member, do not believe that.
Exactly. Uncle Joe would never do that, right?
Are you kidding? That's Grandpa.
Yeah.
No way
exactly.
Grandpa will do that. And they either dismiss it, don't believe it, ignore it. And
that contributes to the trauma.
That contributes to even greater level of traumatic experience as an adult. And there's a lot of guilt.
Yeah.
There's a lot of broken families as a result of that. So we need to We need to put a stop on that. Now, I always say that the perpetrator have issues of their own too.
They do.
While I don't justify their behavior towards a child, they do have their issues as well. So we need to develop something in this community that would address that important issue.
Everyone that is caught up in the vortex of sexual abuse needs help. I mean, from the perpetrator to the victim to the extended perpetrators. I mean, all of this stuff, right? Everyone that's involved in it needs assistance. And what Saprea is doing is just amazing.
Thank you.
I love that you said Derek. What was his wife's name?
Shalane.
Derek and Shalane. That I love that their initial goal was to start Saprea and figure out a way to fund it, right? It wasn't to start a multi-million-dollar business.
They did not want to or need to start another business and have those kind of headaches. But they are extremely in tune with the community. They are generous. These are two people whose beginnings were very, very, very poor, very humble beginnings. One from Idaho, the other one from Wyoming, and they met here in Utah. And right after they got married, within a few months, Derek was diagnosed with a very rare form of leukemia. So he had to check into the Huntsman Center, Cancer Center, and he spent several months there, day in and day out. And so they used him as also, trying to heal him also as a form of a study because it was a rare form of cancer. At the same time, shortly, a few weeks after he entered the hospital, someone else entered the hospital with the same type of cancer, except that his was much advanced, and eventually he lost his life on that. But before he died, he told Derek, or he asked Derek, "I'm not going to make it. You will. So do something important with your life." He never thought any more about it. He went on. He was put in remission. He's still in remission all these years. He started having kids. Started working, then opened his own company, sold it, successful. Still never really got into those lasting words. Well, one time he was playing basketball and somebody just hit him on the head and crushed his skulls, and he had to go and have surgery for that. And he woke up in the same room that he had spent, this is years later, that he had spent all his cancer treatments. And as he was coming out of anesthesia, he heard that voice again saying, "You still haven't done anything." So that's when, and at the same time, sort of all this family situation came about, and I said, this is my mission. And so they're very, very generous, very successful, but very, very generous in their giving back to the community. And they're trying to solve a problem that I feel it has a solution, but it's so big.
Right.
Affects so many million that we are constantly, every day, as an organization, as Saprea, we're trying to find ways to reduce the risks and start from there.
And you're making a difference one person at a time, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
Cynthia, this has been an absolute treat for me to talk with
Likewise.
you today.
Thank you.
I'm so grateful. Saprea.org, is that where people can go?
Saprea.org.
Saprea, it's Saprea.
Saprea.org.
Yeah, you can get all the information there that we've talked about today.
Yes.
Again, thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Thank you for what you do. I'm sure that it is helping a lot of people. Thank you.
I appreciate that very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everyone, for listening today. We hope you tune in for future podcasts. Remember that change starts with you, and together we can work together to increase our mental health momentum.